Good afternoon. My name is Scott Rutledge, Chief Strategic Officer at T3Live.com. Welcome to today's recap and look ahead.
观众朋友们，大家好，欢迎收看今天的直击美股，我是主持人张叔，在纽约向您问好。周一美股收高，我们看到今天市场是在一系列的并购合同下呢，是受到了一些提振，但是这样子一个提振呢，涨幅是非常有限的，原因是今天包括像美元以及包括像油价的一个承压。另外一方面，我们看到今天市场的经济数据相对于清淡，唯一发布的就是 IHS 的一个制造业指数，而这个指数显示最新一个月美国的制造业扩张是达到了53.2，而这一个数字呢，也是显示当前美国的经济活动依然是在非常积极的扩展当中。但另外一方面，我们看到今天联储官员也是出来讲话，其中包括像芝加哥联储主席以及圣路易斯的联储主席，他们都表示，在未来的2到3年之间，美国将保持这样子低利率，并且这样子的低利率环境将会成为一个常态。而归其原因，主要还是因为当前美国的生产率的增长不及预期。但总的来说，我们看到本周将会是财报季当中最为忙碌的一周，因为包括有160个标普500指数的成分股公司，以及包括13个道指的成分股公司将要公布财报，而相信这一系列的财报发布之后，将会迅速的影响着股市的一个涨跌。而到目前为止，有79%已经发布财报的标普500指数的成分股公司都表示他们的一个财报呢是利好的，而这个消息也是促使着我们今天的股市在上涨。好的，更多的消息请看一下我们今天的交易员访谈。Hi Scott, your stocks traded higher today, gap up on the merger news, but I think the gains subdued because of the rising dollar and also the oil prices. So, but bulls reclaimed the 21.49 level. So, how do you think about the market overall?
I think it's a little sluggish, like you said, but I think it's constructive underneath. So at this point, yes, the S&P cash hasn't been giving you blockbuster moves, but there's been a lot of good moves in stocks. If you look right now at the S&P, you'll see overall still hanging around. This was the old resistance that has now turned into support. If you look going across, we held that besides that one day. Now, it looks as if, we're coming into that descending channel again, so it might be hard to get through. Like you said today, Annabelle, we did take back the 21-day moving average, which is a step in the right direction. And at this point, we'll see if we can inch along. But really, the place to be is in key names, not the S&P. But when you have the S&P on your side, it's very helpful.
And also speaking of tech sector is up like 1% in the middle of the day. And how are the names such as like Facebook, Amazon mean to you?
They've been great. Ever since Netflix earnings, some shorts have been covering, and there's been a little bit more friskiness. Traders like friskiness. What does that mean? You could buy high and sell higher. Look what's happened ever since Netflix earnings. You got to write down the strategy. Okay, you come out with earnings like this, boom. It holds the big earnings gap, and then gets followed through when it gets above the earnings high. So you could have been a buyer of Netflix and still made money from 119.82 all the way up to here. Now you have a doji, so we'll see if this digests. So I talked about the same strategy in Microsoft, right? Microsoft, big gap up after earnings. Okay, so what did it do? It proved to hold this pro gap and triggered for some traders above the post-earnings high. And now looks as if we can get a few more days. Facebook, unbelievable pre-earnings move. Traders have to love that. You didn't even have to take earnings risk. This cleared its resistance and gave you an extra day. I talked about buying it here at 129.50. I've been long since last week. I sold some today, but still in some. And then finally, Google, which I think Annabelle and I have talked about 25 times or more, broke out above this key pivot, came back in, tested it, and held, and today you had some follow-through. So you didn't even have to wait for earnings and sit in earnings for a nice breakout move. So traders love when they don't have to take binary event risk, and you can just use chart patterns and pivots to enter and then get some follow-through in trades.
Okay, I think there's another tech names we cannot miss today, which is Apple, because Apple is going to release its earnings tomorrow. And up to now, I think there were some analysts argue that maybe the iPhone sales may fall for the third consecutive quarter. So how do you think of Apple? What is its pre-earnings move right now?
I usually have some kind of option play. I'm probably going to be flatted and traded afterwards. I think there's a small chance that this quarter coming up didn't have enough time for iPhone 7 sales. So this quarter might not look the best, but then I think guidance is going to be okay. Usually Apple has a great quarter, bad guidance. So it goes up and then goes down and then figures it out. This time I think they're going to have a decent quarter, but then they're going to up their guidance. And to me, I think if you wanted to be in Apple for the next month, I'd rather see you long than short. If you remember last time we talked about getting long Apple here, when it broke the downtrend, held this gap up, and then did your double bottom there, well, it still looks good. And again, you have some event risk. So I'm going to say, after hours, if you trade after hours, if it gets above 118.60 and holds it, you could buy it after hours. And I think, I'd put a high probability that at some point in 2000, actually, I think it goes a little bit higher. In 2016, we could see a move close to 124. I'd rather see you buy calls for a play versus puts. And if you're going to play the stock, just know that there's event risk tomorrow after the close.
Okay, that's all we have for today.
Yes, and each day there's movement, there's action, there's pivots. If you're looking for tradable setups, my note every day has 20 to 25 of them. And, just keep rotating and keep an open mind because the setups are happening. So look for setups, don't look for a top.
好的，感谢您的收看，我们明天再见。